Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining me today, Hilary.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, I'm late.
Oh, no, you're not late. It's 12:01. I don't consider
I'm
that late.
I'm very punctual. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is
Of
great.
of course. Hilary, where are you based out of?
I'm in Montclair, New
Oh,
Jersey,
okay.
but
Nice.
I do my private lessons in surrounding areas of Montclair and then also in New York City.
Amazing. Awesome.
Yeah.
So you're not that far from me.
Where are
I'm
you?
also in New York. I'm in
Okay,
New York. I'm on Long Island, but I do some work in the city as well.
great. Maybe we'll run into each other
Yeah,
sometime.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Hillary, I would love for you to just introduce yourself to the audience and for everyone listening so they can know what to expect and also just the services that you have to offer.
Okay. My name's Hilary Thornburg Nicolai, and I'm a dance educator. I've been teaching for about 12 years. I have full EBT certification. Um, I'm currently in grad school at NYU, getting my master's in dance education with a concentration in ABT pedagogy, which has been eye-opening.
Mm.
Going back to school at 52 was rough. Um, but I started ballet with Hillary during the pandemic, as kind of a lot of these little takeoff, things happen. My studio shut down and they didn't pivot to Zoom right away. So I was like, I didn't want to leave my students in a lurch. So I just kind of grabbed a camera and started, offering pay what you can lessons and things like that. And it's just organically evolved over the last few years.
Amazing. I'd love to hear from the teacher perspective in just
Yeah.
really, these conversations are about how we can promote supportive environments for our dancers. And I would love to hear from you about some of the steps that you take to really make sure that your dancers are feeling supported and also how your education now has been maybe coming to play into this.
Yeah, that's a great question. So definitely my going back to get my master's has changed my perception and how I approach teaching. I think before it was kind of like I taught how I was taught, and it just
Mm,
kind of,
mm,
it was definitely geared towards that pre-professional, like you're gonna dance or you're not, kind of command style, and the dance culture and the landscape is changing, and I think teachers need to be a little bit more in tune with what's actually happening and what dancers want and need, which is, as you said, support. And that doesn't mean within just the studio, it means outside of the studio as well. So I do try to practice what I preach and what I've learned in my program. And that's just, usually before every class, I check in with my students. I'm like, how are you feeling? How, what's going on? Does anyone have any injuries? Um, Let me know. I try to foster an open dialogue in my classes. When I was cutting my teeth, we weren't allowed to speak. I'm not sure how old you are, but I came up in the 90s where it was a little harsh. It was like do what you're told, keep your mouth shut, and you do it or get out.
mm.
We don't care if you're injured. We don't care what's happening outside of this classroom. Um, so I really, really make a concerted effort to model a different approach to my teaching. And my pedagogy includes, like I said, checking in with my students, making sure they're okay, supporting their outside interests and activities. And I let them speak in class. I ask them a
Mm.
lot of questions. I they don't even have to raise their hand. I'm like, just blurt it out. Like if you have, like it's kind of I'm trying to create a lab, like a
Mm.
workshop situation where, you know, because I don't have all the answers. No one teacher has all the answers, right? So my approach is to try to guide them to be able to think critically about not just ballet, but like their life in general, like what's happening, how they feel, and then be able to communicate that with me because I try to create an open space, a safe space, where they can tell me what's going on and I don't dismiss them. And I think that's about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Honestly, that's beautiful, and I think you're
Thank
setting
you.
a really beautiful precedent for the future of dance. And one thing
Yeah.
that I'm really taking away from this that I think is really interesting is the shift over, let's just say, let's call it I don't know, last 2 or 3 decades in what the focus is in the studio being like recognizing that the work that your dancers are doing with you in the studio, it's not only for the sole purpose of whether or not the outcome is going to be professional dance career, right? I
Yeah.
feel like from what it sounds, you're really helping your dancers foster this idea that there are many paths that can be taken from your work here as young as you are training in dance. And that's not necessarily something I've always heard for the long run, right? Like even in my
Right.
own, I'm 35, and my
You're such a
history of
baby.
my I'm also like a relatively young mom, so I feel like I do I'm constantly being told you're young, you're too young, you're too young. But but hear me out. So I
Yeah.
feel like in my own training, when I think back to my younger self in the studio, it was always like the outcome was going to be professional dance career,
Yeah,
performance
absolutely.
based professional dance
Yeah.
career. And I really I had so many different shifts in my own career as a dancer that I almost wish I knew from a younger age, like that would be okay. Because, and we can get into this a little bit more, I really want to hear what you
Yeah.
have to say. Identity is such a big thing for dancers, and that identity is really crafted from such a young age. It's really inspiring to hear that you are making a very proactive effort to allow your students to start from a young age, like building an identity in dance that doesn't necessarily mean like it's, all or nothing in the studio.
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually, you mentioned identity. That right away, I think like labels, right? So,
Mm,
um, I don't like, I don't like labels.
mm,
And this comes from a former label uh, follower. I definitely labeled myself like I was a dancer first, and then, all this other stuff. But um, definitely within the last couple of years, things have shifted. I think it was kind of creeping in before that as well. I think becoming a mom had a
mm.
lot to do with it too, because and I'll get back to the dancing, but you have these kids, right? And like you want certain things for them, but you know that not everything they want to do is going to work out. So you just kind of have to support them and guide them, and whatever happens happens, right? And I tell the same thing to my dancers. So I said, I'm honest with them. I'm like, you're not all going to be professional dancers, and that's okay.
Mm.
Like maybe you want to choreograph, So I set time aside in the class for improvisation, so the dancers can learn how to like. And when I first started doing it, they were so uncomfortable. I could see
Mm.
that they were like, "Wait, just tell me what to do." And I was like, no, like you need to kind of, I'm telling you, you have the freedom. There's no right, there's no wrong. I just want to see you express yourself, like do a movement and then see what your body wants to do after that. And so through this, even like I've been doing it the last couple of weeks, like during reverence, right?
Mm.
So I'm like, reverence, you have 32 counts, do whatever you want to do. And I really see them like at first it was like
Mm.
they're all looking to each other, not sure what to do. That I could see them like screaming for help inside. Um, but now it's like I see them like really getting into it and dancing in a way that's so much more free and liberating than they did during the entire class because they're
Mm.
trying to like focus on the technique and hit that triple and do that beat. And so I try to give them opportunities to, like I said, uh, you might end up choreographing one day. I know when I retired, I was done with ballet. I never wanted
Mm.
anything to do with it. And then, of course, I had twins,
Mm.
and right around the age of 3, they were like, "We want to take ballet," and I got sucked back into it. And so you never know, like you never say never, but like if you really truly love dance, you might become a
Mm.
donor. You might
Mm.
become just like an audience member,
Mhm.
right? You might become a teacher, a dance educator. You might um, have children and bring them to the ballet, right? So there's
Mhm.
all these different avenues that, and that's a part of more of like the dance education space. So
Mhm.
there's like the professional track, pre-professional training, then there's dance education. And there's a little bit of a conflict of like, which is better. And I think it's like comparing apples and oranges. And I think that you can actually hold space for both of them at the same time in the same
Mhm.
space, which is what I'm trying to do in my class. So I am training a high level of dancer at the studio where I teach, but I also bring in this concept of like, you're not just a dancer, you play an instrument, you go to prom, like, you like to cook, or, you have family members, or you go on vacations, and those are all fine. And those are actually tending to those needs outside of dance is just going to make your experience within the classroom, I think, more fulfilling.
Mm. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I mean, how lucky are your students, honestly, to
You
be
can ask
receive
them.
be receiving these messages from such a young age. Truly, truly, like I said, paving the way. I love it. I love hearing it. And you've really touched upon this already, just in regard to how we are redefining healthy, number one, as a dancer, and then how balance in life plays a role in that, right? And just to encourage the other opportunities that you're doing from a day to day, from going to prom or having another hobby or maybe being involved in a sport. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about how your education that you're currently doing has helped to foster those messages.
That's what it's all about. The program is
Mm.
all about that, kind of like it's the dance educational space, right?
Yeah.
And how um, when, like, let's say, for example, a student misses class, and I came up like, if you miss class, you're gonna get it the next time you come in, right? And I was met with a lot of like, oh, you're not prioritizing ballet,
Mm.
so you must not be serious about it. And I'm like, "Oh, actually, I was injured, or like I was out of town, or like whatever." Um, but so I really try to say like, hey, how was that performance you were in last weekend with school? How was that play you were in? And I don't give them the grief. I try not to give them the grief of missing class. Obviously, I want them there. They miss some stuff. They'll catch up though. I try to um, just really encourage. Also, we talked about a minute ago having the outside influences impact the ballet studio. I
Mm.
feel it's the reverse as well. Like I also try to teach them that like the ballet studio is like a microcosm of, it's like analogous to your life and your world outside, right? Even though it shouldn't be like in and out, but I do say like, hey, like you're gonna fall out of a turn. It doesn't matter if you fall. You're also gonna fall outside in the real world. You're gonna fall and you're gonna fail,
Mm.
right? So be prepared to fail. It's gonna happen. If you think you're not gonna fail at some point in time, you're not being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
So that just acceptance of reality is kind of empowering. It's like, okay, this, and also like it's only a failure if you don't learn a lesson, right?
Mm.
So um, failures in the studio, which I don't call failures, I call them opportunities for growth and learning.
Love it.
Um, that should translate to then when you go to school, or when you go to audition and you don't land it, it's like, so what? There's another one tomorrow. There's another one next year. It
Mm.
doesn't. You're not defined by your failed pirouettes.
Mm. Love, love, love. What fabulous messaging. Yeah, it crossed my mind too as you were talking about this, just the amount that we gain in the studio personality wise, the drive and the motivation, but also the mere fact that when with something like dance and with technique and artistry and these skills that dancers develop in the studio, they're not things that can be just given. They have to be worked on, they have to be earned. And it's hard work. And I think that's also another aspect that dancers, the beauty of it, right? The beauty of it, because I have my kids too. I mean, they're still young, but I would love to get them into the studio and get them into this world. And a lot of people ask me all the time, like, are you sure? Are you sure you want them to like it? And I'm like, actually, yeah, because I guess I've been doing this work for long enough where I've seen the positive shifts in it. And of course, yes, we're working at a snail's pace here, right? The industry has a long way to go.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I cannot agree more with just the benefits that dancers experience in the studio, also being what helps to build them as human beings outside the studio, whatever they end up becoming down the road, even if it's a parent of a dancer, right? Just continuing to foster that. Wow, what a wonderful
But you
conversation.
have to find the right people though, because
Yeah.
I don't think that everyone is there yet. I know that when my girls are going to be 17 next month,
Mm,
I and when I started teaching, I did not want them to go
yeah.
into ballet.
Yeah.
I was like, stay away.
Mm,
But and not to like toot my own horn, but, or, someone who aligns with my philosophies,
yeah.
if they, if they had someone like that, I think it would be great.
Yeah.
Because it does build up, uh, there's the potential to build up people and not break them down. Um, but it really demands that teachers reflect
Mm,
on everything they say and do. And I'm not perfect. I'm sure I've said things to my dancers that didn't hit, didn't land. I thought it was going to come up one way and it didn't. But it's like I have to, and I do. As I drive home at night, I'm always like, how did those classes go? And I'm like, oh, this one girl kind of, she kind of challenged me, and my natural instinct is like, I would never talk that way to a teacher.
mm,
But then I'm like, wait a second. This is what I want. I want to be challenged because it's not me and then them, right? We're here. This is, and not everyone will agree, and that's fine. But my pedagogy is like, I'm teaching them, they're teaching me. Like we're creating together. And if it's truly a safe space, then they will be empowered to challenge me.
mm.
And so I took it as a win. I was like, yes, like, and same with having kids. Like I have three teenagers and I get the talk back. And my first reaction is like, I never spoke to my parents that way. But then I'm like, oh, I did this. Like I taught them to challenge authority. Like you really, really have to, as long as, they have a good reason and they can support it with an argument. And it's like, okay, like you go girl,
Mm,
like I
mm.
get it. Like, and
Yeah.
then I feel proud of them. I feel proud of, that's when the few times, you feel like you're doing the right thing as a mom. There's so few and far between. There's so many times where you're like,
Mm,
I failed.
mm,
But then there's
mhm.
these glimmers where you're like, oh, that just made me really proud.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for telling me no. Like, good,
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I think a big part of that, and then I don't want to take too much of your time, but this just came to mind. I think a big part of this also comes with just helping your dancers, your kids, because I have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old at home, and agreed in regard to both of my kids, they're not passive kids. They speak. they speak up and they speak out, which is like difficult as it challenges me as a mom. But
Yeah.
at the same time, agreed with you because I feel like, wow, they're learning how to set boundaries, which in today's day and age, I think is so important for both my son and my daughter, right? Learning how
And
to set
dancers,
that
and
and
dancers.
dancer, yes, absolutely, absolutely. So that's really something that's just from
Yeah.
one mom to another mom, and you're more experienced than I am with it. It's just really good to hear. It's good to
Yeah.
hear that you see the
Thank you.
benefits even into the teenage years. Hilary, I don't want to take up too much
Yeah.
of your time. You have shared such beautiful insight
Thank
today. Please,
you. Thank
please
you.
tell everyone where they can best find you because I really do think that you are offering some great services for our
Thank
dancers.
you. I mean, I have a website. It's balletwithhilary.com, as you can imagine. I'm on Instagram at Ballet with Hilary. That's if you just search anywhere Ballet with Hilary, you'll find me.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Hilary, thank you so much for joining me today.